right, Skip, about a week and a half left in the spring. I know you've talked about there's the excitement of spring training starting, then the regular season, and then there can be a massive lull, and there's a lot of work to get in. Do you sense the guys are at the point now where they're just ready to go? And from your perspective, like, hold on, we still have work left to do. Where are you at in the spring?
I think there's always work left to do, but ultimately I think they're ready to go. 25 at-bats or so in. They kind of are feeling some guys are feeling really good. Some guys will tell you that they need a little more time. But mainly it's getting their legs underneath them. Pitchers have to build up still. I mean, that's probably the main thing and why we're still here. But games like yesterday, the day before, I mean, 3.5 hours, like with a lot of replacement players in there, that's not ideal for me. But I like to watch our pitchers go. Luzardo yesterday was great and whatever. But for the most part, I would say 90% of the guys are ready to start the season. The other 10% are still feeling it a little bit and are glad that the season hasn't started.
How's Brax doing?
Brax threw a bullpen today, 35 pitches, full intensity, was good. He was throwing 90 miles an hour in a bullpen setting. He didn't love where his slider was and his changeup, but that's natural because he is kind of in a spring training bullpen session. It's not like leading up into a game just yet, if that makes sense. So he's got like 2 or 3 more bullpens before he throws a game. So, finding his arm slot, finding his delivery, that's all part of the process right now. And the good news is he feels really good. He's just pissed off that he wasn't throwing strikes with some of his secondary. So that's a really good sign when you see that.
With Edward Cabrera, I know it was a right shoulder that knocked him out last year. He said this was totally different. It's been diagnosed as a right shoulder impingement, not ideal in the middle of March. All of a sudden, obviously everybody has injuries, but you might be looking at a rotation now with 4 lefties potentially. If he's not ready, that's a little unorthodox, 4 lefties in the rotation. But your thoughts on where this potential starting rotation is at right now? Are you feeling uneasy or still confident with some of the depth that you have?
I feel confident with the depth because we get to insert a couple guys that are pretty good. So I'd be a little bit nervous if we had to insert a guy that's never done it before. Ryan Weathers has done it before. AJ Puck has done it before. Trevor Rogers has obviously done it before. So we have some guys that can fill the role until Braxton and Cabby are ready. You want to have to make tough decisions. That means your team is good. And so when those guys come back healthy, that means we have to make a call on a couple guys. That means our bullpen gets better, or if we have to option a guy, that means our depth gets better, whatever it means. But I think there's going to be more than 5 starters anyways during the season. You're going to need 7, 8, 9 of them, probably 10, honestly. So there's some so yes, it's not ideal to have an injury. However, if you're going to have one, the Braxton and Cabby, early in the season when the games don't count right now, and we get to rehab and kind of move it slower than we need to, or maybe a little bit slower than maybe if it was June or July. I think that actually probably is helping them get super strong, healthy, right where they need to be. So a couple weeks in April, maybe they're ready to go.
I want to stick on the arms. Max Meyer in particular, we saw him 7 innings combined. What's the hope with him? I mean, when we talked about maybe like June over under. Is there a timeline on when you want to see him by, or is it just all dependent on how this thing goes?
I'm not going to give it a timeline. I think you just kind of watch it and watch him, and hopefully he goes and knocks the door down and forces his hand and forces our hand that we gotta have this guy up here. I don't know if that means a starter. I don't know if that means multiple inning guy in there. I don't know what his real innings limit is yet. I haven't been told that. So if he's say it's 100 innings, which I don't know if it is. Just say if it's 100 innings, and he's got 60 down there and they're really good. Well, maybe we need the 40 up here, and if we're gonna use those good innings, why not use them up here? But it's up to him ultimately if how he's feeling, how he's recovering. He hasn't pitched in 16, 17 months, whatever it was. So I know that the slider can get people out right now. He has enough velo. I think he probably has more velo that you'll see, during the season, and then the changeup is developing. So he's got a mix that has starter mix. Whether or not he's gonna start this year for us up here, or be a really good bullpen piece just this year because of the innings, I don't know. But it's a nice piece to have down there.
I mean this in a good way, but his wires cross a little bit when he's on the mound.
Yeah.
He goes to a weird place. No?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he seems to have an attitude like nobody's beating me, and I don't care who I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't scare. He has, I played with Chris Carpenter, and, he's screaming at guys, running down the line. I mean, he had his wires crossed as well, but a super good teammate. I think it's so much easier when you have to pull back than push a guy, and it's so much easier when a guy is not scared of who he's facing than is shaking on the mound when you're talking to him, in a high leverage spot. Like, he wants to be in that spot, which is, you can't teach that, I don't think, or it's a learned behavior for years if you are taught it. But he feels like he's ready. Probably wasn't excited. I know he wasn't excited that, we optioned him down, but doesn't mean he's not going to be here eventually.
One of the things I like to watch when you're behind the screen, trying to see if you're tipping your anger when you start to shake your leg. What infuriates you the most during spring? Is it the errors? Is it the umpire mistakes? Is it the walks? Like, what really just grinds your gears?
I would say walks, number one, because we're preaching winning the strike zone. So I'm not in love with ball one. I'm not in love with long counts. I'm not in love with weak contact early in the count from our guys. So I think there's a couple things that I don't love, but I'm also aware that it's March 13th, and guys are still trying to get their timing, pitching, and hitting. Umpires I'm always not going to be happy with no matter what. Like, if you go in knowing that you're not going to be excited about who's umpiring no matter who it is, like, you're never going to be disappointed, right? So I want to be surprised every night that they're good, and so I think that's a good thing, right? And so you don't get into all these arguments because you're already expecting it not to be great. And I tell my son that, by the way. He's 16. Like, just go in knowing that they're going to make bad calls and knowing it's not going to be perfect.
Right.
And you won't get that upset. It's easy to move on when that happens. But if you're expecting perfection from umpires, then, like, that's not fair to them. It's not fair to us. And then you're going to be distracted and concerned about the wrong thing and not be able to move on. So I wouldn't say they grind my gears at all. It's not an easy job. But I feel like the other stuff is what, when you're preaching some controllables that you can control that don't that you're not seeing on the field, that's when you are you're ready to the leg shakes a little bit more.
There's like a laminated piece of paper behind every Nationals mound in spring training that says, "I don't care how hard you throw ball 4."
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. You hear it from a lot of managers, pitching coaches, like, if we're here, we're throwing strikes. Let's get our work in.
Absolutely. That's the whole key. I mean, it's hard to hit.
Right.
And if you look at the numbers, 0-0 count, if you are 1-0 or 0-1, it is a gigantic difference what the offensive profile looks like. And then the flip side of that is if you're swinging out of the zone early in the count, then your numbers are going to trend the wrong way. So I think winning the strike zone has been the message. It's going to continue to be the message throughout the year.
Does Jake Berger profile as a long-term first baseman, in your opinion, watching that build, shape, way he fields? Is he a first baseman down the road for you?
I don't know. I think you'll see him play first base, but he's got enough arm strength to play third base. He played good third base for us last year, so there's nothing for me to suggest that he's going to play first base only. He played some second base last year, so he's athletic enough to play multiple positions. And I think, right now, I think he's a third baseman until he's not. And but having said that, I do like the versatility to get some guys off their feet to DH that night. And so I think Jake can be a long-term third baseman. I think he can be a long-term first baseman. Whatever we need or a team needs, I think he can provide.
Last one for me. I was watching some bullpens the other day. It's remarkable to me to watch Sandy Alcantara coach. I mean, really, whether he's helping Urian translate for Mel or just watching Jesus Luzardo or Cabrera, like, what does he mean to this team that nobody will really see this season? And by all accounts, if he's going to travel with a team, that would go to show you the value that he has. Not oftentimes guys are going to miss the whole year will be with the team all year.
I've seen a lot of guys, a lot of superstar pitchers, rehab in the morning and be gone by lunch. A lot throughout the league. Sandy and Adam Wainwright have had Tommy John surgeries, and they stick around until the starter comes out of the game. They watch the bullpens. They are in the weight room. They're sitting down, eating lunch with the young guys. They're playing ping pong tournaments. They're heavily involved. They're the biggest cheerleaders. And when you're really enjoying other people's successes and not just so consumed by what you're doing, that's the best teammate, that's the best friend, that's the best husband, wife, whatever, right? Like, that's who you want to be around. And he really enjoys seeing other people's successes and trying to get others better while he can't do anything. So what he's providing, you can't quantify. And that's, you talk about analytics, that's something you can't quantify, right? There's nothing on a computer shows how good of a teammate Sandy is, and the stuff that he's helping Mel with. And I think sometimes it's more meaningful coming from a player than a coach, anyways. A message, and sometimes you have to use a player to get a message across. Well, what better player than Sandy to use to get a message across? I don't know that answer. So the fact that he wants to travel on the road says who he is, because those are long days on the road if you have zero chance to play. And he's going to make an impact, and I'm grateful for it.